Hello freaks, geeks, degenerates and basement dwellers. Welcome to the Warzone. I'm Scruffy and this is Skruffytalez. And Russia is trying some sneaky moves by the looks of it at Pokrovsk. So we're going to take a look at that real quick. But we're going to start off with some statistics that are important that might highlight the situation for the Russians currently along the front line. But and then after that brief look, we will then move on over to the maps. So before taking a look at the maps, let's take a quick look at this. Like we talked about in the previous video, the chances of a Russian deserting has doubled in 2025 compared to 2024, and if the desertion trend continues, we estimate, or this page, these guys estimate at least 70,000 deserters in the Russian army in this year 2025, which would be roughly 10% of the entire force deployed in Ukraine. So obviously the Russian army is struggling here with desertions, potentially desertions peaking in 2025. And linked to 2025, we have vehicle losses for Russia. And we can see here throughout the year how they steadily, move away from armored transports and tanks and more relying on unarmored vehicles, civilian vehicles, motorcycles, trucks, cars, you name it. You can see here how now in the past month or two, civilian unarmored cars have completely taken over Russian casualty figures. Russia is not using armored vehicles anymore, but still quite clearly losing a lot of vehicles, unarmored civilian vehicles. So they're still using vehicles to attack with, but they're no longer using armored vehicles, more than likely because they're running low on them and have to rely on scavenged civilian vehicles and motorcycles to conduct their offensive operations. So between these two reports, it's not looking all that good for the Russians. I think we can all agree on that. And here we have Pokrovsk 73's map. Front lines are moving extremely slow all over the place, as we've become used to. Need to highlight this here, though. We can see here Stepove, another Stepove. There was another one, Verbove. Wasn't there a Verbove here as well? Yeah, Verbove and Stepove. We see this name all over Ukraine. They're using the same names for every other town. Yehorivka, another one. Novoselivka up here. Take a look what happens when you go down. Where the hell is it? Novoselivka down here as well. I mean, they just imagine delivering mail in this goddamn country. Anyway, this push is important because this puts Russia behind the Ukrainian Syrsky line, the hyped up defensive line that was built to counter current Russian tactics and the current threat of drones. This is right on the southern tip. So Russia is essentially moving around the Syrsky line to the south of it. Nothing strange about it. That's what we see throughout history when you deal with a very well fortified defensive line. You move around it. So should have been expected by the Ukrainians. So I'm sure they have troops ready to deal with this situation as the Russians are now trying to come around south of the Syrsky line. Now we're gonna move over to events up around Pokrovsk, and we're gonna jump on over to my map, which we have here. This is the most serious situation, if you ask me. Russia is in control of Kotlina and, by the looks of it, Udachne. I haven't properly mapped out this area yet, as you can see, but the reason why this is important is because Russia is only a couple of kilometers away, not far away at all, from the E50 highway here, as well as the roads coming through Hirishne that leads in to this part of the town here. And this is a major supply hub right here for Pokrovsk. So if the Russians can push up here, they have cut basically almost every supply line leading into Pokrovsk if they reach the E50. And I can threaten Ryshne. There's a river here as well, but since they are in Rodinske, the supplies coming through here from the north, precarious. So Ukraine must rely on supplies coming through Ryshne and along the E50. There's a road right here where I'm showing you now that comes out this way and down here. So should Russia come up to the E50, Ukraine must move supplies through Ryshne and all the way out here, and then using dirt roads and country roads and the main highway over here to supply Pokrovsk and Mirnorad. So Russia, being in Kotlina, they are in a really good spot to threaten supplies into Pokrovsk properly. Everyone's talking about up here, but my concern is Kotlina. Russia is in control of Kotlina, and that is extremely dangerous for Pokrovsk. We'll see how this develops. But now, let's head on over here to the north of Pokrovsk, where you have the 4 pockets, the Kuchero Yar pocket, the Shakove pocket, and the Rodinske pocket, where Ukraine stands a chance of grinding down thousands of Russians. I think the figure is 3,000 Russians in total trapped in these 3 pockets. Russia's trying to counter this. They've been pushing up here to the west of Novoekonomichne, trying to punch through and reach the Rodinske pocket. At the same time, they're pushing out of, trying to break out of the Shakove pocket by coming down south here, trying to come in between Dorozhne and Nikolaivka in order to link up with forces down in the Rodinske pocket. So if that's one way they're trying, or in these 2 pushes is how they're trying to link up all their forces west of the river. But recently I've been seeing people being really afraid about this push. Russia's moved up here into a narrow forest belt right next to a dam. Ukraine's been launching drones at this part here, indicating a Russian presence, and people now worried that Shakove and Toretske are in danger of being surrounded. Shakove is in danger should the Russians push further west here. I mean, we have Russians down here, so the situation isn't that much different from Russia having troops here, but they are advancing east of Sofika, and but it's not a massive encirclement as it may seem if you take a look at, say, Deep State or anything, because let me show you here on the topography map. You can see here wide open farmland. You have the river, and east of the river Ukraine doesn't have all that much territory that they can defend due to these wide open fields of farmland. So it's not as if you have huge chunks of territory with Ukrainians that are now being threatened to be encircled. It's actually quite just a small number of locations where the Ukrainians are holding east of the river in this part of the battlefield. And should Russia come up towards Sofika, they don't have all that many options. Coming across the high ground here into the valley, we see here between Sofika and Toretske, there's just one bridge, and right next to that bridge, you can see here on the topography here, it's a huge hill, a steep slope up on top of this huge hill, and right next to this bridge, I'll show you what Ukraine have prepared up on the hill here. Going back here, so we're gonna now, so here you have the bridge that the Russians might be after, Sofika, Toretske. But take a look up here on the slopes here on the high ground, overlooking that bridge, overlooking the valley with Sofika in it. Take a look now when we zoom in. Vast amounts of trenches, fortified positions, and what have you. So the high ground here on top of the steep slope is fortified, overlooking the valley with the river and that one bridge. So say that the Russians do come in this way, threaten Sofika, it feels as if the Russians might have an issue coming across the river and that one bridge. It's not gonna be helpful for Shakova if the Russians are right on top of the river. It's gonna be difficult to move supplies back and forth. Absolutely, but it's not as if the Russians, I don't think the Russians will be able to make a big move through Sofika, cross the bridge and that river, through Toretsk, take the high ground, and then all of a sudden link up with the troops west of Shakova and encircling Shakova in the north. I don't think that is what's going to happen. The Russians have been struggling in this pocket for ages now. They don't seem to be able to push into Shakova at all. Maybe if Russia reaches the river, the situation will change, but maybe it's hopium, but I think that this river and Sofika and Toretsk will be too much of an issue for the Russians. I don't think Shakova will fall anytime soon. But the Russians, they need to do something, obviously. And I think the Russians, they want to push out to Sofika and this river to try and strangle supplies coming into Shakova from north. And if they manage to do that, to reduce the amounts of supplies reaching Shakova, then maybe you can move in from the west down the hills into town itself. And if they do that, then of course they unlock the 4 to 5 bridges you have in the Shakova area, and then you might be able to push up and link up forces west and east of Shakova. So this push here, I don't think this push is intended to break through and create encirclements. I think this push is meant to reach the river, reduce logistics reaching Shakova, so that other forces can begin pushing into town and threatening the bridges. But this push here, it's not like it's bad, but it's not like, oh my god, it's a blitzkrieg move. They're gonna sweep in and take Sofika and Toretsk in a day or two and then encircle all of Shakova. There's too many obstacles in the way, and the Ukrainians have fortified high ground here overlooking the valley and that bridge. So things are moving along slowly. Ukraine still has these 3 pockets that they're working on. Russia is trying to break through and supply their troops, reinforce their troops, but the Ukrainians are still holding. We saw a Ukrainian counterattack down here. I'm not sure how successful that counterattack was. And to be perfectly honest, it's a bit unclear how successful the Russians have been in pushing up here as well. We've seen Ukrainian drone strikes along these windbreaks. So we have a Russian presence, but if Ukraine has dealt with it or if the Russians are still operating here, a bit unknown. But clearly Russia's trying to push up to the west of the river. I'll show you here. So here is that river that the Ukrainians have used to trap Russians in these big pockets, and Russia's now trying to push up to the west of it to avoid this natural obstacle in the terrain, coming up through Novoekonomichne, following the river north in hopes of reaching the Rodinske pocket. At the same time, the Shakova pocket is trying to push south to link up with the Rodinske pocket in the north, so you get a cohesive Russian line again. We'll see if that works. If that works out for Russians. Some people might be worried that this push north might take Russia closer to the fortress belt. The issue here, though, is that the fortress belt is a massive fortified line with concrete, and then you have to the west, like we said, the Syrsky line coming from Dobropilya, coming up this way through here, and then cuts in close to the fortress belt. And with the river, and you have some dams and lakes here as well, it's dangerous for Russians. We've talked about this before. If Russia pushes up here, they essentially push themselves into a funnel where they are trapped between the fortress belt, the Syrsky line, and they have all these water features that is, tying them into these specific spots where they are easy targets for Ukrainian drones and artillery. So pushing north, I don't think the Russians want to do that because they wedge themselves between the fortress belt and the Syrskyi line, and it's a massive kill zone. So this push here, I'm thinking, yes, they want to push close to the river to reduce logistics reaching Shakova, to help troops south and to the west to push in. But this push here, I don't think this is a... We shouldn't be worried that it's a big push to surround Shakova. I don't think that's going to happen at all. But the river and the fortifications will more than likely help keeping the Russians at bay. And the question is if Ukraine can keep moving supplies into Shakova. We had some Ukrainian drone strikes up here a week or so ago. Worrying, since this, as you can see here, and here you have a road, the main road leading into Shakova. It's coming down this way. So maybe the Russians are contesting this supply line into Shakova. We'll see how it goes. I'm rambling like crazy here, aren't I? But that's gonna have to be it. That's the general situation at Pokrovsk at any rate. And that's it for the maps. Yep, that's gonna have to be it. I hope you found it interesting. I hope I'll see you in the next one. As always, go po march, Ukraine, and give them hell.